Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back down the rabbit hole. I am your host, Monty Hook, and today I am joined in the studio in Bali by Mr. Joel Brown.
Yep.
Joel.
Paradise, brother.
Cheers, man. Thank you so much for coming on. What do you think of the studio?
Dude, I love it. Man, I really do. I love the vibe. It's got some cool feng shui. It's very you.
Thank you, man. Thank you.
I love it, man.
Yeah,
it's good.
awesome.
Nice work.
Good stuff. So you're from Australia. You're from Western Australia, right?
From Perth, yeah.
Yeah, and you're living here in Bali?
Living in Bali, yeah. I've been here for a few years now.
Yeah, but you were in Australia this year and you somehow escaped back to Bali.
Oh, man. Yeah, I got stuck. Well, initially I got stuck in Marrakesh in Morocco. Like, these aren't, all these places I mentioned aren't bad places to be stuck by.
Yeah, you're stuck in paradise.
Yeah. So we're running an event in Marrakesh, Morocco. Country went into lockdown. Army jeeps came out that were searching through homes, getting everyone's passports. It was legit, you know, and we had to get 22 people out of the country. And naturally, being the leader of it as well, I was the last one left. And so I couldn't get back to Bali in time. They shut the borders. So the next best place was Gold Coast, Queensland in Australia with my buddy John Templeton. So we cooped up there in his house on the lake, and we just smashed out, you know, new courses and did a lot of coaching and a lot of transformational work. So no complaints, man. It was a year that was, I'm sure for many people, was unexpected. And you either look at it as an opportunity to grow, or it's a pit of sorrow, you know, like where's your platform, where are you launching from? I hope more people than not took the higher ground and went, let's turn
well,
this
we'll come back. We'll come back to that. But just a bit of context. You know, I mean, I've known about you online for many years, and you know, you've done really, really well creating, you know, big profile for yourself, and you're speaking at events around the world and doing transformational work with people everywhere. So, you know, congratulations on, you know, all the cool stuff that you're doing, all the great work that you're doing.
Thanks, man.
But we never really crossed paths, and then I ran into you at the airport. We were on the same flight back to Brisbane. It was a year ago or so.
Yeah.
And I just came and said hello, and you're like, who the fuck's this dude? Then we got talking, and no, it's been really, really great to connect with you. And, you know, I think we have pretty similar circles in terms of some of the people that we know. So it's been great to connect. But, what are you known for? I mean, there's all those things I just mentioned then, but what are you actually known for?
My magnificent obsession for transformation. That would probably be it. What am I passionate about? It's really diving deep with people and exploring opportunity of hope and exploring what's possible within themselves, you know, and it all started when I did that for myself first. Naturally, this is how it is I came across a book which changed my life, and initially I watched this classic movie, you might remember it, is Space Jam with Bugs Bunny and Michael Jordan, right? I was 7 years old, and that was the first time I ever felt inspired to follow my dreams. I'm sure if you're watching this right now, you think back, it's like, when was that first ever movie or book that you read where you just felt like you were so on fire? It was Space Jam.
I've heard The Alchemist, I've heard, you know, Rich Dad, Poor Dad.
Yep.
You know, The Richest Man in Babylon.
Yeah. And even
never heard of Space Jam.
well, you know, I saw Michael Jordan, and I was like, there's something about this guy that he just had so much discipline. You look at Nike shoes. I got Nike on right now, and you got Jordan that's like jumping like this with a ball in his hand. It's like, why do they put this guy on a shoe? There's more than just, you know, oh, it's a good money play. It's that he represents something, and he represents discipline.
And he probably represents the possibility that's in all of us, right?
Absolutely, man. Absolutely. And I saw that at a young age, and I said to my mom, I'm like, hey, I want to be like Mike, but the white version, the Aussie version.
Yeah.
And she
you're quite tall. How good are you at slam dunking?
You know what? That year she bought me a plastic basketball ring that was maxed out at 6 foot, and I remember putting bricks on the pavement, running up and jumping off that, dunking it, feeling like the man. But that was the start where I followed my passion, and from there it just opened up this whole world in me where I realized, wow, if somebody can do something, there's potential for me to also do it too. And I started to just consume a lot of information and put it into practice. You know, my mum often said to me, she's like, there are no limits. when you learn these things and you practice it, at some point you will attain it. And it was one of the greatest gifts my mom could ever have done, is open me up to reading and learning, you know. So that's really where everything kicked off. And then I got this exciting perspective of life where I was like, wow, everyone needs to taste this. And so that's why I created addictedtosuccess.com, and from there just build a whole movement and community around this idea of learning transformational content, inspirational content, and then applying it to your life. Yeah. So yeah. And cool, I find whatever mode, modality, platform I can do it in to be able to introduce that to people, whether it's podcasts, speaking on stages, running courses, masterminds, retreats, whatever it is. Yeah. Yeah.
So what are some of the common patterns that you see in people in terms of, you know, when you meet people and they're not achieving what they want to achieve, or, you know, they don't have the level of happiness or fulfillment or purpose or any kind of motivation, you know, what are the patterns?
Man, I see so many, and I recognize those patterns within others because I first experienced it in myself, and at times I still have moments where it tries to rear its ugly head, you know. I would say the common patterns are that most of us to some degree are struggling with this BS limiting story of I'm not good enough. A lot of entrepreneurs have that. I remember when I was 17 years old, I was severely bullied throughout high school. I dropped out of high school. I didn't even graduate year 12 in Australia, and I reached this fork in the road, and I had to choose whether I was going to be the victim or the victor. And I took what at the time I thought was the victor with all the tools I had, and I was like, I'm going to prove you wrong. So I achieved massive success in the music industry, signed under a subsidiary of Atlantic Records, worked with huge hip-hop artists in America at a young age, negotiated deals with, you know, people that were double my age, and learned how to do business. I flew around the world at a young age. So I had a good taste of what it meant to live in your achievements, but it was coming from a place of force, from desperation, not from inspiration or from power. And when I got really clear and got into my alignment, that's when I realized, like, oh, this feels different. And that's where I find so many people nowadays are going wrong too, is they're comparing themselves to a lot of people because they're coming from lack. They're coming from scarcity. They're saying, well, I'm not good enough, but there's someone who I think is good enough because I'm seeing the glory, but I'm not seeing the story. And then they're saying, I'm going to force my way up the mountain to achieve what I think is what they have that makes them happy, not knowing if they actually really truly are fulfilled. And then when they get there, they either celebrate for a bit and go cool, but then they're like, wait, what else is there?
There's something always missing.
It's that they're out of alignment. You know, I know what alignment feels like, and that's my compass and my caliber. Like, I know where it is. I can always recalibrate and bring myself back into my alignment because I know what it feels like to be in it, and I know what it feels like to be out of it. You know, so that's what I challenge a lot of people on when I first work with them.
I can relate to that because, you know, I had my first business when I was 8, and it was driven out of this pure desperation and need to, because we didn't have much. I didn't have a TV, and I was looking at my kids, and they got like video games, and, you know, like their parents drove cars, and I was, you know, I grew up on a boat, and I got washed out of a tub. We didn't even have a shower, and then we ended up having a TV, and it was black. It was black and white, and I had to row the dinghy to school, and you know, and in hindsight, it's like, you know, I had it better than 95% of the kids on the planet. But as an 8-year-old, you know, what I made it mean was, you know, my parents weren't looking after me, and I was really mad. I was really angry, and that fucking drove me. Like, and that was my pattern for a long, long time until maybe, you know, 3 weeks ago. No, I mean, remnants of that are still there. I'm still always peeling off the layers. So here's my question. You know, I think to some degree that's most people, if not everybody's kind of initial path, right? And then you kind of get to a certain place where you start having all these experiences of, you know, I'm having some success, but that's not fulfilling. And then it's like, well, that spits you off in the direction of starting to explore, well, really, why am I here? What's my highest purpose? What is my meaning?
So you start going down the rabbit hole, you know?
Exactly. So my question is, do you think that you can actually find that place within yourself to really seek that higher meaning and purpose without having enough falling on your face with that ego-driven, you know, desire filling, whatever that fake, you know, motivation is,
Mm-hmm.
or do you think you can actually just tap into that pure alignment as you call it, or have you got to keep falling on your face and learn that?
Yeah, okay, that's a loaded question. In a nutshell, straight to the point, core belief where I'm at right now is yes. When I personally connect with the rock that's higher than I, right? Like when I connect with God, that's my place. Because it's like I kind of hover above it all and see the bigger picture as far as I know in my life right now. And I'm not by any means, I'm not an atheist, right? I believe that we were created by God for a reason. I don't believe that we're just dancing with our DNA. I believe that your life has meaning.
Mm-hmm.
You have purpose,
Yep.
right? And there's value that's on your heart, and you were created with value, and the creator wants you to function in the best design possible. And that's my perspective. That's how I've lived a lot of my life. And
So were you raised like that?
initially I was raised Christian, but it was adopted Christianity. You know, it wasn't chosen by any means in that sense. I've never really had church hurt. You know, when you have people that go to church, they feel there's power mongering and fear instilled in them and everything. I never had that. My mom always told me, she's like, Jesus loves you, you know, and look at Jesus, look at the character of Jesus, and be in the practice of. She never said you've got to be perfect. She just said be in the practice of it. And you know, I think really circling back around later in my life after going on this journey of just like trying to just do everything myself, and just like I've navigated through many different spaces, dark and light, you know, and been in the practice of owning both sides and not making any of it wrong, but looking at it as a journey, and coming back into a space where it's no longer adopted but chosen, and not religion but relationship, is very different.
Yeah.
And that's the thing, is like religion's man-made.
Well,
know?
and the way you're describing the way that your mum taught you is that, well, that wasn't about religion. That was about faith, and that was about, you know, you're loved.
Yeah.
Putting aside what the religion is, and putting aside whoever, you know, whatever figure you want to put to that.
Yeah.
It's like it's the essence of love, and it's the essence of you are loved, and yeah.
It's the identity too, you know what I mean? Like if my identity is that I'm this all-star person that stands on stages and everyone thinks, you know, I'm incredible and this and that, like that's a tough gig to uphold, you know? And I think that I can definitely say this, man, with hundreds of millions of website views and featured in movies and front cover magazines and blah, 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 all that stuff, bro, that ain't it. Yeah. I'm telling you that, man. I'm telling you, it's like, I think there's a lot of people that will see it and think, oh, once I get that, I'll feel utopia. Yeah. And I think those things are great. I do those things as more of a flex within my own challenging of myself to see like how far can I step into my potential.
So here,
and that's what I challenge everyone to do, is like if you know where your alignment is, your center, you have that connection that's greater than yourself, you're not going to make it about self because that's like, it's essentially poking holes in the bottom of a styrofoam cup and hoping that the external always like is there to fill the cup to make you feel fulfilled in life.
Yeah. So how do you, in that, how do you not let your ego kind of get in the way? How do you find that balance of having a healthy level of ego where you can keep moving forward, you can still have that strong presence, and you can still be powerful in yourself, but it doesn't run away with you?
It's been present with life. I think often the times where I've let it get the best of me is I've either based what I think I need now from the past and going, like, it's either talking shit about someone or like trying to put someone down so that I feel great about myself because I didn't feel good about what I did or how I've been behaving or how I think life should be from the past, or it's I'm not appreciating and grateful for what I have so far, and I keep thinking that there's more that I need to get in the future. Yeah. It's like I feel very much more at peace with where I'm at, whereas before I would just be running so hard, and it showed up in my life, man. I'm sure you've had these experiences, and anyone that's listening or watching this right now, like, I want you to think about it. Did you ever have times where maybe you dated somebody that you just knew in yourself? You're like, red flag, but you stayed in it, right? You stayed past the expiry date. Maybe you had friends around you that you knew were toxic and you didn't let that go. Maybe it was being in a business just to make money when you know you're not passionate about it. These are all you being out of alignment. And what happens is, because you're out of alignment in who you are and everything's coming and emanating from you, that things like seems random start to show up, like crashing your scooter, losing your wallet, like money like getting lost from your account, or just things happening, smashing yourself, hurting yourself, saying random things you don't usually say, and messing up a situation. It's because you're out of alignment. And so alignment is so much of it all, man. I think that the ego is this lack conversation. It's, I know that I haven't been paying attention to staying in my alignment when I start feeling the ego trying to get something involuntarily out of me till it's too late, where I'm like, oh, that was, like I said, some stupid thing right now, or like I did something I'm not so proud of. You know?
Yeah, it's interesting as you evolve this constant awareness. It's like, being able to catch yourself just becomes faster and faster, and now it's to the point it's like instant. It's like, oh, I shouldn't have said that. Like,
and bro, I'm not perfect, man. Like, I do it all the time still. It's just, I think you get better at managing it. I don't think it ever fully goes away. That's my experience. Anyway.
Yeah, and I think you also go through these phases where you catch yourself and you have this awareness, but then you beat yourself up about that. And then the next level.
You're just so not on your own team, man.
And then the next level is, like being able to catch it, but just dissolve it straight away. It's like, no, there's no charge in that. There's no energy in that.
Acceptance is everything, bro. Like that, and that's the thing that I think that even within my belief in Christ is, when I look at like that walk, right, walking that way, is that when you're asking for forgiveness from God, it's not to subordinate and be like, yeah, you need to ask me for forgiveness. It's also identifying it within yourself that there's something there that first needs to be accepted. Because I think a lot of us suppress, and we're like, let's just shove it down into the deep, dark dungeon of the shadow in the subconscious and pretend it's not there. Let's hide from it. Let's avoid and act like we don't know that it's there. And that's when it comes out in a very brutal way. Yeah. And it's very noticeable. And then you go in this cycle of just like beating yourself up because you did it. So I do like this practice of acceptance, forgiveness, recentering, having tough conversations, man. I'm a big believer that you don't get in life what you think you deserve. You get what you negotiate. I read that quote maybe 3 years back. And I just remember I went to America and I went into customs, and they Googled my name, and then this guy was like, oh, you're a speaker and a coach, blah, blah, blah. They saw, they Google image search and saw me on things. And I was like, yeah. And then for whatever reason, I think maybe he had a chip on his shoulder. He got a bit jealous of her, and he's like, how are you here and making money? And I said, well, I don't make money here in a brick and mortar business. I have it online, and I'm just here for a couple months. And they threw me in detainment there for 10 hours. They interrogated me and all this stuff. And they came to me and said, you can go to, because my stuff was in Santa Barbara, California at the time, and they said, you can go grab your stuff, but then you can't come back here for 5 years, or we fly you out right now and you go and get this other visa, which I didn't even need because I was on a business visa already, and then you can come back after 6 months. And in that moment, bro, I was just like, I remember standing my ground saying, I will not accept either one of those as an option. And I said, get your manager. And he came in, and I just did this whole negotiation of like, I'm in my values, I'm contributing to society and the work that I do, blah, 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 and had this conversation. And the guy was just like, okay, fair enough. I fought for it, man. I was willing to fight for my stance, and I negotiated it. And around that time was when I read that quote. And I since then, I've just negotiated so much in my life. And I feel like so many people are coming from people pleaser. Yeah. Right. Don't want to rock the boat, rattle the cage, or they don't believe that they actually are capable of having those things because they think they need to do A, B, C, D, E to be smart enough, good enough, not fail, not make mistakes to be able to get it. And it's so not true.
Yeah. And I think in those moments, a lot of people, if not most, wouldn't react very positively. Like they would actually kind of get riled up and respond react very badly, and then basically ruin the moment by not holding their power, right?
Bro, it's hard to rock a person when they're in their conviction. Yeah. There's an energy to it. Energy doesn't lie. Yeah. And truth operates on a certain frequency that people are like, oh man, that hits. Yeah. I may not agree with it. Yeah.
but I can
I
respect
can't
it,
deny that
and I
it's
can
there.
respect it.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. You okay to talk about religion?
Yeah, let's go there, man. Hell yeah, let's do it.
No, I mean the reason being is
I
because
said we could go controversial if you want.
No,
I
I mean,
like this conversation the most, to be
it
honest.
shouldn't be controversial, of course, but the reason I want to raise it is because I'm going to assume for the most part that some people listening to this, they're going to be from that background and they've completely lost those roots, or they've forgotten it, or they've given it away. There's other people who never had it and they've found that, and there's other people who are probably more in the camp of me, and that is, I believe in all things and all religions, and I actually think that we all believe the same thing. We just articulate it in different ways. But some people will be listening to that going, oh, okay, well, he's a churchy, he's a this, he's that, or whatever.
Yeah.
So how do you explain that to people? Because that potentially can be polarizing. But I know you, and I know that you are somebody that respects all beliefs and respects all opinions, and
Absolutely,
that's your chosen way of creating faith, right?
Yeah.
And so how do you explain that to people? Do you get asked about religion?
Often.
Yeah.
I studied theology for
Yeah.
a while. I studied Christian apologetics, which, if you've never heard of the word apologetics, in the Bible it says if you have faith, you must have an apologia. And the Greek word for apologia actually means to have a reason for, which I love, because it says don't just believe it and take it for what it is.
Yeah.
Go and study it. See if it has logical consistency. See if it has empirical evidence. If you traced it back, and does it show throughout history that it was
Or it
actually
has some purity, and what you're seeing right now is the same as it was before. And
yeah, that's a consistency, and
Yeah.
even just the experiential relevance. If I said to you, Monty, Christianity is the truth because I saw miracles before my eyes and I've had prayers answered, you'd be like, that's great, Joel, but that's not my experience. So that's just one element of it, is the experiential relevance. But the logical consistency, like if you looked at it and you tied it together and you connected the dots and you challenged it and so on, and you created a case for it, does it add up?
Yeah.
And empirical evidence throughout history, what it says here, did it actually happen back there? Can we see any sort of evidence? And man, dude, 99% of people wouldn't be able to say, yeah, I've done all that research.
Yep.
And I like this whole challenging belief systems, because I've been coaching for almost 12 years now, and a lot of the work I do is around your core beliefs. It's around shadow work. It's around why you sabotage things, why you procrastinate, how to heal it, how to work through your addictions. And I just wanted to keep going down the rabbit hole in that, right? I got to a point where I'm like, wait a minute, why does a young 6-year-old kid strap a bomb on his chest and blow himself up in the name of his God? That runs deep. When it comes to politics, why, for whatever reason, why is red considered to be more so conservative, and how come blue is liberal? And what does that mean? What factions, what belief systems, what core structures are driving that? And you want to go deep into it, man. This is philosophically, theologically, historically, when we look at this, man, I remember being someone even 10 years back, it's I'll talk about anything, just don't talk about politics or religion. And it's because I wasn't willing to go there, because I didn't understand it myself. Yeah. And the thing I love about it is the rabbit hole is so deep on both sides that you could spend your whole entire life and still only know a fraction of it. What I did learn within apologetics, which is we got to a point where I'd sit in a room with Taoists, Buddhists, Hindus, Muslims, and we'd have these conversations, debates. And at first, we were all getting triggered, because we're all on the back foot of no, this is right, that's right. And I realized in that experience, and it was so good, I realized, maybe my faith isn't as strong as I thought it was, because I need people to agree with my faith in order for me to believe in what I've subscribed to.
Or you wouldn't be getting triggered.
Yeah. And I knew I got to a point where I was like, okay, you believing in what I believe in, or not believing in it, doesn't strengthen or even decrease my belief in it, because I've already chosen it. I have my experience, and I honor that, man. I respect that. And that's why I always say to people, just keep going. I love when people challenge me on it. I love when we talk theology. because so much of what we believe drives and brings the results in our life. What you think is how you feel is how you behave is how you act is the results that appear within your space, right? So what we did go in and really challenge when it came to belief systems, we laid a ton of belief systems out, you know, of the core belief systems around these main religious sects as well, a number of different sects in spaces. And we go, origin, where did it come from? Meaning, what does it actually mean? Morality, is it moral? Because some religions actually aren't moral. If you actually look at it, it's like kill someone that doesn't, it's like, okay, that's not moral, right? And then, you have destiny as well. So it's like, where are we going with it, right? And I love this because it really challenged, and we sat down together with different belief systems and really went into this, and it was so cool, man, at the end of it for us to sit and like all understand how we came to what we believed. And there were a number of people that actually started shifting what they believe because I was like, oh, I didn't know that. Like, I didn't know that that's where my belief system that I had adopted was originally formed, and now it's actually not making sense. I want to explore this more. Or certain things they'd say, others in the group were like, actually, well, that's not right because of da-da-da-da-da, you know? We'd have to be careful of making what we call truth claims. When you speak truth, you've got to be able to back up that it's truth, and it needs to have a lot of parallels that are lining it as a strong foundation. And so many people, even nowadays, make truth claims. And I originally made a lot of truth claims until I got to a point where I'm like, okay, I need to really back this up. And that's what strengthened my faith even more as I dive deeper into it. The thing that I want to talk about when it comes to religion is that, and my friend Marcus, he's a pastor. He's such an incredible guy, great theologian, and just really good with pop culture references. He's very fresh and can talk about any and everyone of all different walks of life about God in a way that's like really easy to listen to him and you don't feel defensive. And what he taught me a little while ago was, he said, we live under this impression because of the way that religion is being created within this man-made space, is that it's like, God's at the top of the mountain and we have to climb this mountain in order to be able to meet God.
Yeah.
And you look at someone like Jesus, who had such a different narrative where it's like Jesus came down the mountain to meet us and have a relationship and to commune with us. And I love that because it teaches relationship. And it's, I don't need to win the love of my God through acts, through rituals, to be able to appease, because to appease means that it's coming from a space of, I need to fear and I have to prove to you.
And this is because I spent a lot of time in the Philippines, and they're very religious. And one of the things that keeps coming up that they talk about a lot is, you know, they're a God-fearing person, or a God-fearing person, and I just keep my mouth shut about it. But in the back of my mind, I'm like, I just kind of have this thought of, you know, is that really what your God wants? Does he really want you to be living in that?
If you trace the word back, when it comes in the context of God-fearing, it actually means to respect.
Yeah.
You know, so imagine you have a child that has no qualms, no problems with just straight up cursing at you as a father and hitting you and doing all this. There's no sense of in the context of that fearing of respect for you, that they're willing to just do whatever they want to try and get their way. Which is almost like, okay, well then that's not a respect of where you've come from or who's part of who you are. Which is why, and this is great, man, that we're even having this conversation, because I think a lot of people have probably thought the same thing. I know I at one point thought the same too. And when you have a look at a lot of the breakdowns, even within scripture from many different religions, as you trace it back and look at like Aramaic or Greek or even from any of the Hebrew breakdowns as well, a lot of words of how we talk now is very different to what it would be back then, and it obviously gets lost in translation. So yeah, it's a great convo to have and a great thing to think about, man. And I think depending on what kind of system you've come through, I never really had a pagan view of God, and I think that a lot of people have been brought up in a system where they have a pagan view, where it's like God's this almighty destroyer, creator, must do this to appease him, and has to be this way and this way and this way, and not knowing that it's actually coming from this unconditional love and not fear. So I feel blessed to look at it in a way where I've always looked at God and even Christ as like unconditional love, you know, and dude, Christ was a gangster. Like, if you study Christ, like the way he walked earth, he was like a lion and a lamb at the same time. The integration of being this courageous person that followed his mission all the way through, even when he was whipped and they ripped his beard out and, you know, whipped him so hard his ribs were showing and made him drag his cross and put the thorn of crowns. Like, just the whole thing around it is just...
Yeah.
And you have non-Christians that, with accounts, are like, yes, there was a guy called Jesus Christ who hung on a cross, you know, so... and rose again, you know. So it's crazy, man. It's crazy to see. And I think to myself, I'm like, man, like how... you hear the word passion... The Latin root word for passion actually means to suffer for. The passion of the Christ, the suffering of the Christ. And the question is, even for our own passions and our visions and our mission, what are we willing to suffer for in order to see our mission through? You know, what a benchmark, man. Yeah, it's crazy. We could go on all day, bro.
Yeah, so do you think that, you know, that faith in God, a creator or source, or, you know, however people want to describe it as best for themselves, do you think that that's something that is missing for people? Like, I mean, in the work that you do with people, is that something that's through your work, or is that's just for you? Or
Sometimes I have believers that come in that have a faith, that have a strong center point in a creator. I have people of all walks of life. I have atheists. You know, we have some awesome conversations. I have people that are like, sounds like you probably would more, if you were to subscribe to anything, it would probably be more I'd say agnostic, where it's like kind of in the middle of like, hey, I recognize all and everything, and I'm like feeling it out, which is awesome, man.
But I also have my practices. Like, I mean, I have an altar in my bedroom, and I've got things laid out, and every night I grab the rock and I like hold it to my heart, and I'm having and at the end of the day, I could say that I'm praying, I could say that I'm meditating, I could say it's whatever. Yeah. But I don't need to label it as anything. You know, so.
Yeah, and that's the thing too, is like we've got to if we're going to label anything, it's understanding what we're labeling and what meaning it has and why it's there in the first place, you know. So I love this, man. I love that you're doing that. And I think that what I do see often in the space of entrepreneurship is, you know, I meet these guys that have the Rolls Royces and the Bentleys, the Phantoms, the jets, the, you know, $100 million bank account, and they're like, you know, what do I do? And I'm like, you're spiritually broke. Yeah. You're spiritually bankrupt. Like, you're not connected to the meaning of life. You've grabbed the external and said, I hope that this makes me happy. You know, you've built the house, but there's ghosts in your house, which, you know, my friend Marco said that movie Amityville Horror. Yeah. You know, that Amityville
I know
Horror
the movie, I haven't seen it. But
so it's kind of like they go and they get this, like, what they call it, like the dream house, and they build it and they spend all this time in it, and then there's these ghosts in it, and they run. And that's kind of like how people live their life, is they get so stuck on, like, I'm building this thing and we're doing this and we're putting all this in that, and then it ends up being this haunting that happens, and there's kind of like these ghosts that are there, which is essentially these things you've been running from your whole life. Yeah. And then you get to the end of it, like, what was all this for? Yeah. So it's like, I just don't want people to miss the point early to then get to the end and go, wait a minute. Like, even someone like Stalin, who killed, maimed millions, 20, 30 million, however many millions it was, you know, it's pure evil. Laying on his deathbed goes like this to the sky. Who was he cursing? Yeah. You know what I mean? Like, even someone that was as staunch as him in like, you know, not caring and killing off people, knew that and could identify within his own soul that he had been created by someone. Yeah. Whether he liked that someone or not, or he was blaming that someone or not, for whatever, who knows? We all have our own journey experiences. And I look at things like that, man. I've always, ever since a young age, I've looked at that and noticed those type of things. And maybe that's what I get to do. And maybe if you're listening to this and you're noticing things that a lot of people don't typically pick up on, and go, wow, wait a minute, there's some meaning and depth there, explore it. Be the person that holds space for that and has those conversations like this. It's not easy to have these conversations with people that could quite easily say, oh, no, that's BS.
Yeah, exactly. And I mean, it's easy here in Bali, right? Because we're so exposed to these kind of conversations. And I guess it's why a lot of people like you and I probably gravitate here, because it is very embedded into the culture here, and it's a daily kind of conversation. And it's not at all weird for me to tell you that I've got a rock that was given to me by a Balinese medicine woman and I hold it to my heart.
Yeah.
It's like, but if I tried to tell that to my dad, he'd be like, "You fucking fruitcake." You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You know, and I don't. My spiritual practice is for me, and I believe everybody's spiritual practice is for them, and there is no right way, there's no wrong way. But I think in some way, like you're kind of alluding to, people need to find whatever that version is for themselves, or there's always going to be some, you know, there's always going to be ghosts running around the attic.
Yeah, man. And my challenge within this conversation is, and I found this through even just having different religious believers in a room when we explored this, was on the surface. I think a lot of people often will say, you know, like it's all pretty much the same. If you actually study the history of a lot of religions and you study the structures, the origin, meaning, morality, destiny, and everything, I think a lot of people think that it's fundamentally similar, superficially different, but it's not. It's superficially similar and fundamentally different for every single religion as you dive deeper and deeper into it. So they're very different, each view, which is exciting news because it means that there's a lot more you get to explore, even within your own belief, to kind of see what's there and weigh it up. It's like your beliefs run and drive every decision that you make. Your beliefs and your values drive every decision you make. Your beliefs and your habits shape your identity. You know, so they're really important things within yourself. If what I believe about who created me and where I'm from and what my practice is driving a good 50 to 80 to 90% of the show, I'd like to
keep that
explore that and have a look. Yeah, exactly, man. So yeah, and it's tough sometimes for people to hear and be like, no. But you know deep in your heart whether you've actually adopted it or you've chosen it.
Yeah.
In the Bible, and I originally was like, I believe the Bible because I believe in Jesus, and Jesus points to the scripture and refers to it quite often. I'm like, oh, there must be some good validity in that, right? So that's why I went deeper in studying it. But in there, it doesn't say grandchildren of God. It says children of God, which means that just because my mom and dad believe it doesn't mean that that's something that I just go and accept. I've got to choose that for myself, which is relationship. I've chosen that relationship, and I get to come to him at any time. And forgiveness, gratitude, thanks, acceptance, all those things, man, are there.
But then I think in that is you taking accountability for your own life, where I think, I mean, and this is what I see in the Philippines, and I'm probably being judgmental, but people there, I'm sure this happens all over the world, are indoctrinated into a family, into a church, into a system, and it's almost like the purity of it gets lost, and they haven't chosen that for themselves. Yeah. They haven't explored that for themselves. It's like they're told that this is the way that you are, and they've never had the opportunity to choose that for themselves. Yeah. Right. And I think I like hearing the stories of people who have found religion, and I honestly respect that because they've found that because they've been on some kind of journey or some kind of vision quest or something for themselves, which has led them to that belief, and now they're using that as the leverage for themselves, for their own faith and the values that you talk about and all of this. And it doesn't matter what form that is. Yeah. But they've taken accountability for that, and they've chosen that.
Yeah, and it's such a good point that you make there. You're right. I think that we need to be careful of falling into something because of compensation, which is what I did with that overcompensationary success of like, I'll prove you wrong and killed it, right? It's the same as, I have friends that are deep into New Age. Before that, they were like strippers and snorted cocaine and like, had, and there's no judgment around that, bro. I've done all sorts of things. I've done drugs and all sorts of stuff back in the day, right? And I see that, and typically what it can be, and I'm not in someone's body, so I don't know the full experience, and I don't know what's God given and guided and all that as well. We can only kind of see from the outside and ask questions. What I have seen often, and I think I might have initially felt this myself too, was this feeling of needing to go into this equilibrium. We equilibrate when we feel we've gone too far to one side of the extreme to come back. And sometimes what we do is we go to the polar opposite to outweigh it, because we feel so bad about what we did. We come back and go
or we have to we have to explore that to figure out, you know, what is our alignment.
Yeah, where's my parameters? Like, where do I work with this? Where feels like, 'cause we're trying to find our center quite often.
Yeah.
And I think
I think always. I think that's the journey of life. It's just constantly pushing the boundaries and figuring out where our center is.
Bro, and that's what it is. Like when I had this experience moving into my faith, but from such a different angle and coming into relationship with Christ, that's what brought me into a center.
And that's why the way that you talk about it is different to the way other people talk about it.
Yeah.
Because the way other people talk about it, it's very like pushy, you know, it's very like judgy and pushy, and yours is, you know.
Trust me, man, I have beef with Christians all the time. Like I have them like messaging me and telling me I'm like, and then I have like a ton of
the same
Muslim friends that are like, we're super cool. We all have chats about who's Muhammad and who's Jesus, and it's great. And that's not to say, without a generalization, I'm just very careful of projecting that egoic view into the space of going, you're wrong, because that's exactly what happened when. Like, think about this. If you've ever heard the story of the young woman that got dragged by the Pharisees down and thrown in the court in front of Jesus and said, you know, this woman is an adulterer. What should we do? They were waiting for him to say, stone her, because that's what the Jews did back then, was to stone an adulterer. And, you know, it's so interesting, man, because Jesus never actually wrote. Luke and a number of other apostles wrote the New Testament of Jesus, right? The accounts of Jesus. He sat down on the ground and he started writing in the sand with his finger. And one by one, those in the court and the Pharisees that brought him in walked away one by one. What he was writing in the sand was their sins. He was reflecting back to them, you've gone and dragged this woman in, and now you're challenging me to see what I would do to try and challenge my character. But I'm going to just remind you of who you were too, and who you are. And they walked away one by one. And then she's there, you know, weeping, and she looks up and he says, where have they gone? He never condemned her. He just said, where have they gone? He wanted her to speak. She said, they're not here. And he says, go now and sin no more. And that wasn't to say, don't you ever do that again. It was just like, I'm holding you to that now, that standard. And in that moment, he said, you know, those without sin cast the first stone. He was a sinless man that had walked the earth. There's no accounts of him in sin, right? Quite easily they could have thrown that against him and gone, yes, he sinned, and it would have wiped out Jesus' reputation. If there was anybody that could have done it, it was him, because he is a sinless man, but he still chose to not do it. And that's the way that I view Jesus, is that pure, that love of, he's not casting those stones at you to say that you're wrong. He doesn't want you to stay in the lower brackets of consciousness of shame, guilt, grief, anger, fear. You look at David Hawkins' map of consciousness. He wants you in acceptance, love, forgiveness, joy, peace. The dark side of, the enemy of, the soul, wants you to stay there. He doesn't want you to be on the dark side, the enemy of the soul's space, because he knows that that's where you end up ultimately when you make that choice. And when you look at the word sin, and this is going to probably trigger a lot of people because it's like, oh, sin, don't sin. What I learned, and this was a profound moment for me as I explored this, was that as I broke down what God actually, if you put it all together, that what he actually means by sin is violation of purpose. Yeah. It doesn't mean that you're this and that and you're wrong. It's not there for that. It's like, hey, here's the design that we've created, and here's how this is the best way that you can live in your design to be playing at your highest level and your ultimate potential. Yeah. And then, you know, people talk about hell, which is another controversial topic, man. I'm trying to cover all the controversies. and hell, if it was described as a place, would be a place that would be a department or a departed of love. If God is love, and we through our free will have chosen not to be with God, by default we chose to be away from God, which is love, which means we're in the opposite of love, which would be hell. Yeah. You know, and it's like, you know, religion often will paint this picture of you're gonna die and bro, that's not
Yeah,
going to
and
bring me closer to wanting to be in that. I'm going to be like, I would want to rebel against that. That's why this whole pagan view of God is very much pushes people away.
Exactly. And the way that you're telling this story is that anybody from any belief could listen to this story and go, yeah, I get it. Yeah,
Makes
I
sense.
get it.
Yeah, and it took me a long time to get it too, man.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's a really powerful place, I think, for you to be at, to be able to embrace that for yourself and have that such strong belief and be able to tell these stories from that place of, this is my belief, but I can tell this story in a way that this is for everybody.
Yeah.
So that's really powerful.
And I share it because that's where I found my center. And, I've experienced a lot of people that have been able to find their center in it. And it's like, hey, man, if one more person in my whole entire lifetime is able to find it and I know how amazing it feels, it's like, cool, man, I'll share it.
Yeah.
It's not for me to feel good about converting or anything. I don't do that, bro. I believe God is almighty and powerful, omnipotent, omnipresent, and I believe the Holy Spirit does the work. I just share the message. And people choose within themselves through their own experience if they feel that they're connected to that in truth, they will do it. It's not my job to do that.
Yeah. And I think what's interesting, what kind of occurs to me in this moment is we quite often look at Buddhist teachings and go, that's a universal message for everybody kind of thing. And yes, that's true. But we don't often think about that from, the teachings from the Bible and of Christ. But I think that's because it's been so, diluted, or it's been prostituted in a way where, because people have carried that message with force and they're trying to force the message on people.
Dude, I totally get it, man. I've gone through that experience myself, man.
Yeah.
I have. I think there's great teachings in Buddhism. I think there's awesome teachings. There's a great way to look into, okay, how can I better my lifestyle? I think there's, my Muslim friends that, are in their Islamic practice, my Hindu friends, man, I got so much respect for just here living in Bali and my cleaner and my friends and those that I've really just come to know more about, like their culture by having conversations out here, bro. So much respect, man. Like the spiritual practices that they're committed to, and the peace and the way they respect each other is beautiful, man.
Yeah, and
it's like that, and that's essentially, like, I see that even when in Jesus was calling us to these practices within ourselves too. I think within myself the difference is that what Jesus teaches is you're saved by grace, which means no matter how much work you do to try and win his love, it's not about that. It's about religion. It's like you've chosen each other in that respect for eternal life, know. And that was a big differentiator for me when I explored it. I was like, whoa. Like,
there's a kind of a humbling in the way you're kind of talking about that as well. It's like, to remain that grounded and humble kind of self, and it's very powerful. Yeah.
Dude, I've read hundreds of self-development books, bro.
Yeah.
Like, just study the character of Jesus, whether you subscribe to Christianity or... As a matter of fact, the disciples never called it Christianity. The pagan Romans referred to those that believed in Christ as Christians. They never actually labeled that. The disciples called it the way. So they'd say the way of Jesus.
Yeah.
That's all they called it, the way. But for whatever reason, through commercialism and through the Roman pagans, that then came in and infiltrated through other systems to create other ways of viewing God and distorting things at times too. It just kind of got lost in this mix, man. I love studying church history, bro. There's a lot there. How the Protestantism broke away from Roman Catholicism, and like how there's thousands of sects in that, and where Islam was birthed, and where Hinduism came from, and bro, I love it, man. Like, we could get into so many of these conversations. Anytime I hear, often I'll ask someone like, "Oh, like what do you believe?" And then we just get into this awesome conversation, man. And I want to learn about everyone's religions. I want to understand it too. Yeah.
Oh, that's cool, man.
Yeah,
cool, I like it. What do you think is? Let's take a different kind of take a turn. What do you think is going on in 2020 on a cosmic level?
Is this a different turn or we got? Bro, there's so much.
Well, man. I mean, there's going to be an obvious thread back to the same conversation, but in terms of like where you started first talking is 2020 for different people can either you can use it as an opportunity, you can see it as an opportunity, see it for what it is, or you can be in fear and it can chew you up and spit you out.
Yeah.
But do you think that on this, some kind of God's plan. There's some kind of, this is a cosmic joke. There's obviously, there's circumstances being presented to us where we are being given the opportunity to learn, or some people are being forced to learn, or some people are burying their head in the sand. But do you think that this year, 2020, has been presented to us as some kind of cosmic level?
Dude, I've moved to both sides of the coin and fluctuated between the two. I can't say it's one singular thing because there's a lot happening right now. You know, cosmic level, there's some changes for sure in the atmosphere. Spiritually, there's shifts that I believe, with my views, I believe that there's this isn't of flesh and blood. It's principalities and powers. There's definitely a spiritual thing at play, and we see it because it's been expressed through left versus right. It's been expressed through people having hatred towards those that are believing in a certain thing. You're having people that are threatening, people that are challenging political systems in a way where they're trying to win over a certain belief system. I think what we're trying to all do is we're trying to achieve a utopia. I truly do believe that we think that our view is going to get us to a place that seems to be like even Hitler, man. I don't agree with any of what he did. I think just because you feel like something is right doesn't mean it is. Yeah. You know, like Hitler felt like he wanted to kill millions of Jews. That doesn't mean it's the right thing to do.
And then everybody who believed in him also felt it at some point as well.
And what's scary, bro, is that we all have the potential in us to be that person too.
And this is the thing I've been saying about 2020, right? Is we look back on history, and every even generation we can look at some kind of evil person, evil country, something.
Dictator or,
we look back in history and go, that happened, that guy was evil, but for some reason we think that that stuff is not happening right now, right? In 50 years' time, 100 years' time, our grandchildren will look back and go, you know, they'll be reading on whatever device, you know, look what these people did in 2020, or look what this country did, or what this government did. Yep. It's naive of us to think that that stuff isn't going on. So I think what's happening in 2020 is that stuff has already been there for decades, all that stuff. It's just now, like, the cracks have appeared, and the truths are coming out. So it seems like there's all this shit going on in 2020, when in fact it was always there. Yeah. It's just now, like, the volcanoes erupted.
I wouldn't want to discount, like, number of other views. I think that we all probably could bring something to the table in what we're seeing and experiencing. The best I can do is bring my perspective so far. I think what's happening in America is having a ripple effect worldwide. Yeah. You've got Joe Biden that can hardly string a sentence together, is in the Democratic Party. There are certain missions and virtues they have that I'm like, oh, that sounds cool. And there's things I definitely disagree with. And you have Trump, on the other hand, who rocked that nation when he first came in because no one thought he'd actually get in. And he's a businessman. He's treating the country like a business. And he's excelling in one area in one degree. And then you have people that are questioning because they're hearing a warped version through the media. And then he says some pretty outlandish stuff. It's like, the guy's not perfect, you know? That doesn't justify, however, the behavior is on the front end or the back end. What I do see, and I got caught up even within myself of going, okay, which side would it be? And people would ask me, who would you choose? Initially, I said Trump, you know, and I got some backlash for that. And it's not just because I hold a slightly more conservative view. It's because I disagree heavily with the mainstream media. I think we're being fed a massive lie, and there's a lot of brainwashing going on. And when you see the mainstream media attacking this person, I'm like, maybe he's rattling their cage with truth to a degree. Not always, to a degree. Yeah. So I saw that and I was like, yeah. But at the end of the day, man, if we really peel this back, you got Republicans and the Liberals, and I'm going to get roasted, man. I know this. The comment section will probably blow up.
Yeah, we'll put this episode out early so we can...
It's Bloods versus Crips.
Yeah.
And people being asked, who are you going to vote for, Bloods or Crips?
Yeah.
You know? And I'm not saying necessarily they're like killing like that, but it's like they're both at fault with certain things. And it's like, what am I choosing between? And I put something up about Biden. He was touching on all these little kids and all this stuff. Like, it was like sniffing their heads and this weird stuff. And I'm just like, this is kind of crazy. And then I had a ton of people like, that's messed up. I didn't know that. And then one person is like, screw you, Joel. Like, I'm so surprised that you would share this. And like, why would you even say, you know, like, support someone like Trump? And I responded and said, bro, I never even said, hey, don't vote for Biden, vote for Trump. I said, go vote for Kanye West. Like, vote for somebody else that's not them. Like, I'm not saying that. I'm just saying this is interesting. Consider like who you're actually like, because I know a lot of people don't do their research.
And I've had the same kind of thing, but my thing is not politics. My thing is talking about vaccines, right? So that's happening too.
Yeah.
I'm outly been speaking out about vaccines, and then that's sparking debate, and then people are making their own assumptions about what I'm saying. It's like, hang on, I never said anything. The comments you're putting, you're like trying to put words in my mouth. That happens. It's like people are so fixated on what their thing is that they can't shift their paradigm to try to see anything else.
I do find it interesting. I don't know if you've seen this too. There's a bit of a correlation between those, and I'm just carefully stepping through my words here, those that you're just like you're laughing, you're like, here we go. Those that
Joel.
Are entrepreneurial minded for the most part, I see that a lot of them are challenging the mainstream media. A lot of them are calling BS on the warped numbers of COVID cases. Not saying, just sidebar, not saying COVID doesn't exist.
I'll say it. It's a fucking pandemic.
Okay, there we go. I believe it's a pandemic too. I do believe that coronaviruses are actually what can exist in a system. Yep. Dogs have it, papayas have it, goats have it.
Yep.
And at one point they were testing, my friend's a doctor, he's saying they were testing coronaviruses, which you could have with like flu, cold, respiratory infection anyway, which comes seasonal. And they were calling it COVID when they actually weren't supposed to be classifying it as COVID. So it blew the numbers out, ridiculous. The CDC and the WHO have backtracked like hundreds of times. It's like, it's a mess. It's a crap show. But what I do see is a lot of entrepreneurial minded people are challenging these things like vaccines, pandemic, you know, the mainstream media. And I'm going, this is interesting.
Yeah.
Maybe it's because those that are more being indoctrinated into society-driven boxes.
It's the conforming versus non-conforming.
There you go. That's what it is, man. Because entrepreneurs often carve their own path.
Yeah.
They're not happy with how the system is, so they create new ways. They love to innovate. And dude, I'm seeing a lot of these big innovating entrepreneurs that are challenging it. Like someone like Elon Musk is calling BS on like pretty much all of it. You know?
Yeah. And the reason I'm kind of passionate about speaking out about that is because I've never been vaccinated once in my life.
Me
and
either.
I'm probably the healthiest person that I know, right? Well, I'm in the top 1% of people that I know or have come across in terms of, you know, I think physical health.
Someone's going to watch this and say, oh yeah, but you know that.
That's fine. Bring it. And one of my earliest memories is, because I always kind of had this entrepreneurial spirit, and I had that since I was young. And I didn't know I hadn't been vaccinated until recently, because I had a conversation with my mum about it. Because I had this weird memory of me being 12 years old, maybe 11, and all of my class was gathering. And I remember my feeling from the memory is I was left out. That's my emotion that's kind of attached to the memory. And what my mum made me realize and remember was, she actually empowered me to make the choice. Do I want to be vaccinated or not at that age? And everybody in the class got vaccinated, and my feeling of being left out was because I chose not to. Something in me told me that this is not right.
You're a gangster.
At that age.
I love it.
And I never really remembered the memory. I remembered the emotion. And but the emotion that I remember is feeling left out.
Yeah.
But inside that memory is still, no, this is the right choice. There's something. And
at 12, man, that's cool. Yeah. I love it.
And my mum gave me that. And the other reason I'm passionate is because my sister wasn't so lucky. And she's been vaccinated her whole life. And she's struggled with all sorts of ailments and diseases and all sorts. And not that I'm saying it's 100% because of that.
Yeah.
But in terms of, you know, we're fed all these studies about, you know, vaccines are good, vaccines are bad. It's like, why not study people that are not vaccinated? Why has nobody come out with a study? And I read this thing the other day. There's a doctor in the USA who's studied 35,000 people who have not been vaccinated.
Yeah.
And not one case of autism. Not a single case of autism.
Dude.
And I think what you're saying about entrepreneurs, you know, questioning this is because of that conforming. We're starting to realize, starting to wake up that, you know, that experience that I had as an 11-year-old, everybody in the class got vaccinated because everybody's just conforming, and somehow I got empowered to, you know, to little old rebellious me.
Dude,
like to live
you should
that.
do a study now and go back and find all the kids in the class and see which ones became entrepreneurs.
Exactly, and I'm not putting a link between being vaccinated or not vaccinated and entrepreneurship, but certainly the entrepreneurial, you know, that entrepreneurial thing that you're talking about is the questioning, you know, the questioning everything.
Yeah. Well, and at the same time, like I just obviously want to be careful not generalizing, because I do understand there's different factors that are brought into account.
And I've always maintained I'm not anti-vax, and this is the thing that the media feeds. The media feeds people like me saying, anti-vax, you're an anti-vax. I'm not anti-vax. I'm anti-fucking flu-vax. It's like some vaccinations, you know, they serve a purpose.
I don't know. You sound like a conspiracy theorist to me. Someone called me that the other day, and I go, "Oh, of course.
Yeah.
Like, straight up, I am, man. You better believe it." Like I just owned it. I was like, if I challenge something, you know, and I think with the conspiracy theories, I'd say probably about 40% of it's hogwash. And you've got to think too that there's got to be people in there having fun and games with it as well, and like adding stuff in, and we've got to be careful, man, as well. And I've had to learn that too. I'm definitely guilty of just like really going hammer hard and going, like I can't believe this is happening. It's like I hate injustice. I hate seeing people getting ripped off. Maybe there's a correlation between a little bit of that too with those that are in leadership positions and also coach and support people, as they don't like they like to support underdogs. But I look at it and see, like, it's like a corn cob, and it's like you can have most of its truth, but it has a little bit of this like deceit and sprinkled with falsities in it, and it's like the kind of like the gone off pieces in it that can ruin most of it as
and
well.
And this is what I always say is the truth is probably somewhere in the middle. Like there's people saying this stuff.
That's a good point.
And there's people saying this stuff. It's like what I'm willing to do is look at all and then make my own conclusions. But I think that, excuse me, the truth is probably somewhere in the middle. Right? Yeah,
and it's cool because we get to work out where our shadow is. You know, where like everything's mirrored back to us. So if a certain thing, and I did that even with myself when all this stuff came out about pedophilia, and one of that conversation there, like sex trafficking and all that came out, I think it's unfair to say that, you know, all of the Democrats and all of Hollywood and are all, you know, there's pedophiles in Republican parties, there's pedophiles in charity work programs and all sorts. They're everywhere, you know, there's cases of it. But
if you find any, let me know.
Being careful with kind of like how we just mass lump it in and go, that's what it is. Because then, like, and I've had to learn this too, bro. I've gone and got real hard on it. And then what it can do is, like, as the truth eventually, which it does, slowly comes out, it's like you can feel a little bit stupid if you've gone and jumped the gun. And that's what I make sure, like, now I'm very much like, okay, do the research, give it some time, let some truth come through, let some stuff get called out.
And there's a way to present your beliefs in a way which is not confrontational. And this is what I say about vegans, right? Like, some vegans are hardcore, don't eat meat. And there was that thing in Australia, I don't know if you recall, like maybe a year ago, and some of the hardcore vegans were camping out the front of this restaurant, and then the restaurant ended up needing to close, and you know, because they were stop eating meat. It's like, that's not the way to get people involved in your cause. The way to get is, if you make somebody wrong for your whatever your cause is, you're just going to piss people off, and they're just going to not want to believe you out of spite because you're being an asshole.
Yeah.
The way to get people to be introduced to veganism is to say, hey, I've got some really beautiful, healthy vegan food that I have prepared with my heart. Let's enjoy this together. Do you want to try? And let them taste it and go, wow, that's delicious. And then let them choose to explore that for themselves.
Yeah.
But making people wrong does not work.
Absolutely. Are you vegan?
No.
Okay.
I've been vegan and I've tried all of it.
Yeah,
It's interesting because I interviewed Dominic Rapson, who's like carnivore guy, and I couldn't do what that he does.
Yeah,
but
yeah.
I'm interested in the conversation, and I'm interested in pushing the boundaries of that conversation and the vegan conversation, and letting people decide for themselves.
Yeah, where's the center point? Yeah.
Yeah.
What's it's like taking a pragmatic approach. It's like, oh, that's useful. Yeah, I'll go with that. You know, I feel good when I'm in that, and that's the alignment piece that we were talking about before. Is you can feel it, man. You know it. Like that's the practice. Is getting as much as you can into an alignment where you're like, man, I love my life. I'm vision driven. I feel fulfilled. I've got my gratitude. It kind of pees me off that I have to go to bed at night because I just love living life and doing what I want to do. I'm a good person within my integrity and all those things. And then going, cool, if that's where my center point is, I'm going to pay attention now when I'm in and out of it, right? And bring yourself back to that space and not relying on external things to have to bring you back, but knowing how to get back there within yourself and then finding that center point, So yeah, man, that's a good thing. I've been, I would say, a try-hard vegetarian for like 28 years. I'm 33 now, so when I was, I was probably 26 years. So when I was 7 years old, I went to a dairy farm on a school excursion, and the teacher's like, all right, we've got to stick together as a group. And we went in and saw, the cows and all that. And I was like, oh, that's all good.
You saw the cute part.
I didn't go vegan. I was just like, oh, the little chickens and, all this stuff and the cows, the baby calf. And then me and three of my friends, rebellious as we were, as much as you were probably rebellious too, I could imagine, as a kid, decided to go jump the fence and run over to the shed, in the warehouse or whatever it was that we went to. And I just saw cows hanging upside down, blood everywhere. And I was like, what is that? Game over. Went home, said to mum, like, oh, I saw dead cows and saw this and that. Mum's like, yeah, that's beef. I'm like, what's beef? And, and then it was like, but wait, like, do we eat chicken as well? Or do we eat and I just got into this full conversation around lamb and why do we eat that? And why is it called different names to what the animal actually is? And then I just went hardcore vegetarian from 7 years old up to about 30. And then I tried the vegan thing and my energy levels crashed so hard. I didn't do it properly, I think. I didn't have my B12 supplements and all that other stuff. And it came off it too quick and back into it again. And then I started eating some fish. And then I had people that knew that I was vegetarian. They started giving me crap for eating fish. And someone asked me one day, well, how come you can eat fish but you won't eat anything else? And I said, well, because everything else, I wouldn't kill it. And they're like, what? And I said, yeah, so I'd catch a fish and eat it. But I wouldn't cut a chicken's head off and I wouldn't kill a cow. So I said, that's why I eat fish. So if I could kill it, I'd eat it. But if I can't, I won't. And they were like, oh, that makes sense. And I was like, yeah.
It does.
And that's
practical.
It. That's where I'm at. That's my answer so far.
No, that's good.
But the projection thing, man, is crazy. Like I remember sitting at a table full of people and there was one person that literally became a vegan 3 months back, and then they were like, oh yeah, like basically slamming people on the table that way eating meat. And one of my friends goes, Joel, you've been a vegetarian for at the time like 26 years, what do you think? And I said, you guys can eat whatever the hell you want. And he's like, well, Joel would probably have more right to say it because and I'm like, no, I just don't, I never think about it. Like when I see you eating meat, it doesn't register as, oh my, it's just like, that's your prerogative, it's not mine. Yeah, I think you got to work out like what's my come from? Where am I coming from? If I'm living in a world where I'm constantly having to have people be consistent with me in order for me to feel powerful, then that's not actually really powerful. My identity is leaning on everybody else having to understand me and having to approve of me all the time. And bro, that's an exhausting game.
Yeah, and
I'm not there anymore.
And exactly. and I don't think that having nutritional the way that you get your nutrition coming from your identity is a healthy thing to do. And the way that I've explored, eating meat and not eating meat is I like experimenting. I like trying everything. And I think the way that I've been able to tune into what my body needs is by going off things. Like the way to tune into because everybody's different.
Yeah.
And I think the way to tune into that is to go off things and then come back on things. Like hands down, the healthiest thing you can do is to fast, and for a number of reasons. One is because of the physical things that are happening with your body with fasting, but I think even the bigger reason is because you get so in tune with what your body actually needs, because you start to develop this intuitive awareness of what your body needs. And I go through times now, it's like I feel like eating more meat, and other times I'm like, just for a month, it's like I won't eat meat, because that's what my body is telling me.
Yeah.
I know how to listen now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
When I fast, I just feel like I need more food, so maybe I should just eat more food, bro. No, I know what you mean. I know what you mean. You get clean, and you get to feel into yourself more. You become probably, I'd imagine, more intuitive, because there's not as much blocking, and
Exactly.
you're not depending on the cravings and the other things to give you your fix.
Yeah.
Man, I'm a big believer that we often are compensating and medicating ourselves with all sorts of desires.
Yeah.
And that can often be our biggest vice that slows us down from being in our full potential.
Yep.
For me, one of my things, man, I'm gonna be honest, recently is like I've overcome quite a lot of vices. Mine right now is Lindt chocolate, man. Like if I walk past the cupboard and I know there's a block of Lindt chocolate, I'd smash through that block pretty quickly. And I tell my coaching group that, and they kind of laugh. And sometimes they'll jump on the mastermind group and hold up like some chocolate on the camera and kind of stir me up. But you know why we do it, right? It's because it gives us a form of certainty. So if I'm in a space where I'm like, oh, like how's my day going to be? If I'm not quite on point or whatever, and I'm feeling a little bit kind of overwhelmed, I know at least I can get that quick like feeling that I know I can get by getting certainty by eating.
But
the
that's a
chocolate.
very subtle, unconscious kind of thing.
It's so subtle, man.
Yeah.
And it gets to a point where you get like 6 months down the line, and you're like, oh
but
man, I keep
people
feeling like I need to sleep at 2 o'clock. Oh yeah, because I have a sugar crash by that time because I was eating crap.
Yeah. But most people don't have this level of awareness of those desires around eating.
I didn't know it because I freaking coach people all the time that have the desire, and I had to work out what was going on in myself to then realize also what's going on within them. And they're like, "Oh my god, I can't believe you can't." And I'm like, "No, this is like human nature."
Yeah,
you start to understand more about human nature. We you know, like Tony Robbins says, we're meaning-making machines, and we're humans that live in patterns, and we try and equilibrate all the time. That we have these certain behaviors that we often express that doesn't always send us down the path we want to go. And I think knowing what those behaviors are, and like what the thoughts are around it, how to manage, like I said before, not having to completely wipe it out, but managing it, man, you start to like live more of an optimized life where you're like, oh wait a minute, I'm doing a little bit better than I did last year.
But I also think there's you can replace unhealthy patterns, unhealthy habits with new, healthier habits.
Yeah, of course. So it's one of the best ways to do it, for sure.
So what are some of your daily rituals? And I mean, you're a pretty fit dude. Like, do you have strict disciplines and regimens in terms of your health and fitness, or?
Yeah, when I wake up in the morning, typically meditation, visualization, and prayer. Starting my day in such a good vibe, man. Just really coming into a frequency that I feel connected with my creator, where I feel like I've become present with the day, where I've set my mind on what it is I'm creating. I move into a frequency of creation, which is power. It's not force, you know? So it's a good way to start the day. I love my vitamins and minerals. I've done a lot of research around it. I take Isogenics. They have some very well sourced vitamins and minerals that's all packaged into a packet with like your fish oils, your vitamins, your bees, what's the one that comes from wine? It's called
That's wine.
There's one that actually comes from wine. It's what's it called? It's a really great mineral that actually comes from it, and it's got really super high antioxidants in it. And so, I take this consistently, and I notice, like you said, when you come off it, you notice, like, I'd travel for a couple months and run out of stock, and then I'd feel after maybe like a month and a half, I'm like, oh, I know what I felt like before I was consistent with it. So I believe consistency is the mother of massive achievement. So man, vitamins, minerals, take my healthy, nutritious shakes. I make sure I get sunlight. I'm in a practice right now of connecting with 3 new people a week that I wouldn't usually connect with. I take opportunity to, but I'm very careful with my time.
Yeah.
So I'll block it, and I'm very strict to that time block, and that's it.
Yep.
And a lot of great business opportunities, a lot of new learnings, a lot of like profound realizations have come in. I used to kind of hermit and just tuck myself away in the rabbit hole. And just get to a point where I was very much trying to work so much out myself.
Yeah.
So I make sure I network. The gym as well, where we just caught up recently. I do that probably at least 5 times a week. Give myself a couple rest days broken up between a few. I've been playing like a lot of Jordan Peterson recently, man. I love his stuff. Yeah. So Jordan Peterson playing in the background. Dr. John DeMartini, a guy called Ravi Zacharias. He died a couple months ago. He was an apologetics teacher. Yeah, man. He's such an incredible theologian and philosophical speaker, man. Like one of the most powerful speakers I've ever worked with, and Nolan. He's just, man. He's incredible. So I've very much over time filtered through to find like people that I believe are really dropping the wisdom that I'm desiring to learn more of, that quenches more of my mental thirst in this day and age right now. And I just make sure I just really refine, and I'm careful of consuming a lot of content. There's a lot of watered down BS stuff out there, and there's a lot of people parroting information. Yeah, man, and just learning as much as I can about myself through journaling, through shadow work. I teach and coach shadow work, and I'm also doing it for myself every day as well to go deeper. Spend time with my good mates, man. That's really important, to have boys time as well, instead of just being around your lady. If you're a guy and you're in a relationship, it's good to have a balance of all. And that's pretty much my day, man. This is the Bali lifestyle. So life is what you make it. I have some people that go like, oh yeah, but you live in Bali, and it's like, well, I know COVID's COVID time right now, but life is what you create, man. It's absolutely what you make it, man.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, so I've got one final question for you before we finish off, but before we do that, how can people find you? What's the best way? Instagram, Facebook?
Yeah. So Instagram at I am Joel Brown.
I'll make sure people have got the links in all the show notes and cool, everything. Man. I am Joel Brown. You can go to iamjoelbrown.com. Facebook, I'm on there. I'm not really on Facebook, man. I'm on Instagram. Pretty much. So what are you focused on these days with your programs and everything? What's your focus?
Well, I was running retreats and events, but that's not really happening right now.
Yeah.
What I've done really well in, and I think this has really been a great avenue to be able to bring a ton of value and for people to be able to connect with the movement, is I created the Addicted to Success podcast about 6 years ago. We've had people like Tony Robbins, Deepak Chopra, Simon Sinek, Joe Dispenza, Gabby Bernstein, Lisa Nichols, Brendan Bashard, like a lot of really awesome heavy hitters with great information and just really lots of profound how-to. I challenge them a lot to go like, hey, give us some step-by-step, share strategies. I don't just want inspiration. I want transformational, actionable, practical things that my listeners can apply. And so we've done really well. We've reached like 3.8 million downloads on there. And, people have been subscribing and rating and reviewing the podcast. And from a business standpoint, we measured it not long ago. We've generated over 300K back into the business just by utilizing a podcast. So, podcasts are powerful because people spend time in intimate situations where, like, I'm sure there are a lot of people that are listening to this right now that are like going for a walk. Maybe you're getting ready for work. Maybe you're in the gym. Maybe you're in the car. Maybe you're just kicking back on the couch, wherever it may be. And it feels very intimate.
I've never thought that. I've never kind of considered that. Yeah.
This is how it is, bro. We polled the audience. I had good conversations with a lot of people, and they say that's their time where they get to spend it with you. And it's kind of weird when I'm at events.
Yeah, because they're kind of like choosing their downtime with you. Like, let's hang out kind of thing.
Dude, that's cool. It's weird when I'm at events and people come up and they're like, hey man, you're they'll say something like, and I'm like,
we were in bed together the other day.
And the guy's like, man, I was on the toilet the other day and like episode 54 when you said this. I'm like, I don't even remember. Oh yeah, I did actually say that. That was a while back. So it's very personal and it builds great rapport and trust. So if you're running a business, if you got a brand, there's so many benefits, man. Like a lot of the people, like I mentioned to you, that I've worked with, that I have on my podcast, some of them ended up becoming my mentors. And it's because I connected with them first on the podcast. It's because I helped them to promote their books. Because I spent that time with them. And then sometimes after the podcast episode, you get to have a bit more of a chat with them. And I've had mentorship. Some of them, featured in a number of movies, documentary films, and some of them I've actually been able to get on the movies with me too. And we've developed an even stronger connection, relationship, business partnership, whatever it may be. And yeah, man, like your network really does determine your net worth. It expands even more because you introduce each other to more possibilities, opportunities. That's the power of podcasting, you know. And
so I might think about starting one.
Think about how you can really bring value first and foremost to your people. I've been able to get a lot of all-star guests, and I've come up with 6 of my own unique strategies in order to be able to get people to say yes. Right? So I teach that in one of my podcast courses that I have out right now. It's called Podcast Mastery. And I also talk about how to get millions of plays and downloads, how to market your podcast, how to run it alongside your brand and business, how to, you know, all the technical, like setting it up and everything else. So it's pretty handy, man. A lot of people that have either wanted to do one for a while, start one, or didn't know the power of it are jumping onto it. And we've got a lot of people jumping in right now. And if you really sat down, if we're being real, I'd say if you sat down and committed to a few hours over a few days, you'd be able to set it all up and get everything rolling. And
it doesn't need to be like this. I mean, there's a very specific reason why we're doing it like this with a studio and
I'd say yours is almost advanced. Like you're moving in between intermediate to advanced, and I know your next one is going to be big time, like almost like the Today Show or something like that. And your guys back there are like, oh yeah, man, that's next level, let's go. So yeah, if you're listening to this right now and you want to be able to explore a way to build more rapport, to be able to connect with people in your industry or space, maybe you're not in self-development, maybe you're a health expert, maybe you're fitness, yoga, yogi, whatever it may be. This is a great way to build a massive network and to bring awesome value to your movement, and to bring people into an experience where they get to experience what it's like to be with you, to even eventually come into your programs, buy your books, come to your events, go to your workshops, join your masterminds, join your summits, join your email list, whatever it may be. It's a really cool avenue, man. Yeah. I'm a big fan of it.
Cool. So we'll make sure people got the links to, all of your stuff.
It's a2spodcast.com. So just head there and jump on.
Well, now that I know that there's people on the toilet listening to me, so that's awesome.
Dude,
Thanks for that.
They are, man. Yeah.
So first, we'll close off with one final question, but before that, I just want to acknowledge you for the work that you're doing, and I think you're a really great demonstration and example for honouring what you believe and being able to integrate that into a way which is actually really powerful for yourself. And I think it's a really powerful demonstration for people for what's possible. And I know the work that you do is already good. It's already strong. You know, you've got a very strong message, and you're helping transform people's lives. But you're an example. You're a living example of that. So
appreciate that, man.
Yeah, cool.
It's nice to hear these things, because I think often, and you too, I'm sure, and anyone that's really deep into their brand and business right now, you can be sometimes so running all the time in your brand and business that you don't acknowledge even within yourself, and that's a good opportunity for everyone to do that, to reflect and be like, oh cool, I'm doing some things, you know?
If I thought you were a dick, I'd tell you. I mean, I'm too honest.
Oh man,
I'm too honest, man.
Bro.
I'm too honest. No, but one final question.
Thanks,
one final question. If you had superpower of mental telepathy just for 1 minute, and you could connect a message to all 7.8 billion people on the planet, whatever that number is now, what would that message be?
It would be that you have value that's placed on your heart.
Mm.
Your life has meaning, and you're here for a real reason. Act like it.
Mm.
That's it.
That's cool, man.
Yeah, man.
Awesome. Joel Brown, thank you so much for coming on, man. Really appreciate it.
Thanks, man.
Guys, make sure you go check him out. Follow him on Instagram. And, we'll see you real soon. Back down the rabbit hole.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Tune in soon, guys.